Closer to home, and the federal budget is bogged down in the upper house. So Treasurer Joe Hockey is on a listening tour around the nation, trying to win over key crossbench senators. Tomorrow night he's due to meet the man frustrating many of the planned cuts, Palmer United Party chief Clive Palmer. As political correspondent Sabra Lane reports, Joe Hockey's going to great lengths to appear more consultative, but he's made it clear there's some free advice he won't take.
Hello.
Getting to know you. Getting to know all about you. Putting it my way, but nicely.
Jackie's a wonderful person.
Getting to like you, getting to hope you like me.
Thank you again, Jackie. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. See you later. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
The Treasurer is conducting a meet-and-greet tour around the nation, getting to know the crossbenchers who'll decide the fate of his budget.
Sorry, cameras everywhere.
The Democratic Labor Party's John Madigan invited the media along to his face-to-face encounter. Mr Hockey was not impressed.
Thanks, guys.
The Victorian Senator also invited constituent Phil Raker from Melbourne's outskirts to give a first-hand account of his circumstances to the Treasurer.
He's more worried about his bottom line than my kids, I think.
Mr Raker works in an industrial forge. He supports a wife and 3 kids and 2 children from a previous marriage. He has an income base of $43,000.
He ought to be in consultation with people like me before he makes any decisions about the economy. That's what he goes. He goes to the top end of town and says, oh, you want to pay this, I don't want to pay, make them buggers pay. And of course we got no recourse. We ain't got the money to fight it. I mean, people that earn millions of dollars and pay less tax than me.
Phil and his wife Tanya, they're the real deal.
Senator John Madigan applies what he calls the Phil test, weighing up how government legislation will affect Mr Raker in deciding if he'll support government bills through the Senate. He's previously labelled Joe Hockey's fiscal blueprint a family-bashing budget.
The greatest investment we can make in our country is our young people, our children. The children are the future. If you want to build a nation, build the family. Help these people to educate their kids, to give them hope, and they will pay dividends.
Mr Hockey's also had free advice from former Treasurer Peter Costello. He says the controversial GP co-payment should be ditched.
Well, the $7 co-payment, I know it's not going to go through. It's just not going to happen.
So drop it.
So let's move on. What I think they should do, and I've said this before, is I think they have to reboot the whole argument, right?
Well, it's not good advice because, frankly, our budget is part of an overarching economic action strategy that has a number of different component parts. Putting a price signal in relation to visits to the doctor and ensuring that the Medicare system is sustainable is a key part of that program.
Well, I think it should plug away, and I think it should modify the co-payment package to make it much more palatable to the public and to the Senate. But I don't think they should ditch the principle altogether.
Terry Barnes first suggested the co-payment last year. He used to be an advisor to Tony Abbott when he was the Health Minister. He says the package should be softened to win approval. The Australian Medical Association suggested alternatives. They've not been made public. Senator Madigan said he'd consider supporting it if it didn't apply to concession card holders and families on low incomes were exempted after 5 visits. Some crossbenchers believe the payment will stop vulnerable and sick people from seeing doctors and won't provide the kind of money the government's forecast.
But I think the problem that the government has got is that vested interests in the healthcare sector particularly are very strong and very dominant. The AMA, as the doctors' trade union, is basically trying to dictate the terms of the future of Australian health policy to the government. Effectively, they are saying, we decide who comes to Medicare and the circumstances in which they come.
The government's also facing stiff opposition to its university deregulation plans. Education Minister Christopher Pynes conceded the package won't get through as is, and Bill Shorten signed up to oppose key features.
This whole unfair budget should be scrapped in the bin and the government should start again. This is an unfair budget with no friends.
As the coalition approaches its first year in office, it can chalk up delivering promises on the carbon tax repeal and immigration. But perceptions over the budget, the hostile Senate and poor performances by ministers, most recently Senators Brandis and Abetz, have coalition supporters dismayed. Terry Barnes believes Mr Abbott's strong stance with the Russian president can be applied domestically.
Tony Abbott was able to stand up decisively and strongly to a world bully like Vladimir Putin of Russia. Now, if he can stand up to Putin, surely he can stand up to a self-regarding opportunist in the parliament like Clive Palmer.
Things I'm learning about you.
Okay, see you later, guys.
The thought Treasurer Hockey might keep in mind as he dines with the PUP leader tomorrow night.
Sabra Lane reporting.